Welcome back to Coffee Corner Motorsport, Full Beans the podcast. I'm your host, Terry, and whilst you normally know me from my Formula One Espresso News weekly show, which will be back this week, by the way, shameless plug for that one, this podcast is a little bit different. This is going to go into the history and the origins behind Coffee Corner Motorsport and just how did all this come about. The reason I'm doing this, there's a story to be told, and it's a question I keep getting asked on numerous podcasts when I talk to people, when people ask me for advice, which absolutely staggers me. And the biggest question is, where and how did all this start? And just how did we get to be in a shed, drinking coffee, bringing the latest from the world of Formula One? So if that's something that interests you and you've got to spare a half hour, grab your coffee, let's sit down and let's get into Behind the Coffee, Coffee Corner Motorsport, Full Beans. Well, that's good coffee. Joe does make a good coffee. Right, anyway, back to why we're here. Coffee Corner Motorsport. And many of you who have followed the page will know that that was an original name. We originally started with F1 Coffee Corner, but due to the threat of Formula One suing everybody, we obviously changed it. And as I said at the time, that also allowed me to open up into other motorsports, such as the Formula E work I was already doing, looking at whether or not I could do different motorsports to gain access and improve what I can bring in terms of content and things. So it kind of fitted all round to change the name anyway. I certainly didn't get a notice from Formula One to change it. I kind of preempted that it might come. So it was kind of a conscious decision to change it from F1 Coffee Corner to Coffee Corner Motorsport, as it's now commonly known. But how did we get here? I mean, we've got YouTube, we've got social media, we've got over 40,000 followers combined, podcasts, we've got, all sorts, website, media accreditation. But how did it all come about? How did it all start? And just what is the story behind it? Like I said last week on the podcast when I alluded to this is not something that I'm overly comfortable with. I'm not an oversharer. I like to just do business. That's me. And I like to keep, a lot of things personal still. I believe there's a market to keeping the two separate. So whilst this will give you a bit of an insight, it won't give you the whole story, but hopefully it will just give you an understanding to how I do what I do, why I do what I do, and the reasons behind it. To go back there, you've got to go back a number of years. Now, I've been a Formula One fan for many, many years, over 30 years now, showing my age. I grew up watching it with Dad. That's where my love of Formula One comes from. Sat on the sofa watching him. Extremely happy memories, fond memories. Followed the sport all the way through the years. Kind of not followed it as closely as what I certainly do now over the years, because like anyone, life gets in the way, you get busy, and I suppose at some point you will always fall out of love with this sport due to things that happen. So I think I've been on that journey. I wouldn't say Drive to Survive got me back into Formula One, but it certainly helped keep my interest back into it. It certainly got me into a new way of thinking and, whether or not to bring content and that side of things, that's for sure. It kind of opened up a market that wasn't there before, which for someone like me is actually really good. So whilst there's a lot of criticism over Drive to Survive and what it's done for the sport, I also think there's a lot to be thankful for in terms of this brand new audience it's opened up, and then these amazing opportunities that come your way from it, which certainly were never available to me as I was growing up on the council estate that we grew up on. But to go back to the origins of Coffee Corner, I used to work full time. I used to be a store manager and, was a hugely successful career. I'm very proud of my career. Worked my way up from the bottom all the way to the top. But we had some challenges in our life, like everybody. Now, just from the off, I just want to say that this isn't about feeling sorry for me. This isn't about the needs of my family and more than yours. Everybody goes through individual challenges. Everybody's individual challenges are precisely that. They're individual. They're unique to them. This is not a mine's worse than yours. So I don't want anyone taking that away from this podcast. Far from it. This is uniquely personal to us, and this is story behind us and how we come about. What people are dealing with themselves is just as important and just as crucial. But we found ourselves in a situation. We've got obviously 4 disabled children. They need round-the-clock care. I'm not going to go into their disabilities because that's not my story to tell. That's their story to tell. The one story I will tell is how hugely proud we are of what they've overcome. That's not been easy, far from it. In fact, it's been the toughest challenge I've ever taken on in my life. And I genuinely mean that. And I genuinely say that when I say that we live in a world that may claim to be a new world which appreciates people with disabilities and helps people with disabilities. We are a million trillion miles away from that, believe you me. I've seen the suffering. I've now started doing some charity work. So I work for a charity where I'm sat on a board with them to help families, help them make decisions. That's what I volunteer to give up in my spare time. That's how important I feel about this, that we need to make sure the help is going to the right people. I'm very fortunate that we've got a network where we feel supported to an extent. I've got an amazing relationship with Joe who lets me go off and do these things. Yeah, my relationship with my dad is something that, I want to touch on this podcast and the reason why we do what we do. But I'm extremely lucky to not only have him around to share that with. I know that's not the case for some people, but also to have the ability to be able to create some amazing memories with him. And it's a big driving force behind why I do what I do. And so to take you back a few years ago now, I had to give up work full time. I was working 60, 70 hours. And that's not an exaggeration. Anyone who have worked for a well-known German food retailer as a store manager will tell you that is the norm. At the beck and call, getting up at 3 a.m, driving to work. And truth be told, when we were up all night with the kids and their needs, it got dangerous. It got to a point where we almost kind of crashed the car because I was too tired to work. I couldn't stay awake driving. Just couldn't function anymore. If you imagine sleep deprivation, and then times that by we're now in year 8 of sleep deprivation. So we run off 4 to 5 hours of sleep broken. That's not an exaggeration. That is, probably the reason behind the caffeine addiction. And it's not made up. It is genuine. That is the amount of sleep that we do get. It's broken sleep. It's not nice. It's not pleasant. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And it's hard going. But in order to do what we do, so I gave up work because it just got too much and we need to make a change. Now, financially, it was crippling. And what I didn't realise was emotionally, it was crippling as well. And what I mean by that is that's where the origins of all this comes from. So when I gave up work, there was a network of people. I'm not going to call them friends because they're not friends. Network of people who you interacted with on a day-by-day basis. You talked to them, you spoke to them, people called you their friends. You had a phone book full of people and people would chat to you and they would talk to you. When I gave up work, that circle dried up very quickly. Those people in my phone book stopped messaging because there was nothing in common. So I was at home caring for the children. Obviously, me and Joe did a swap, so Joe was working. And ultimately, that circle becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So there came a point where it was literally just us and our immediate family with no one turns you, nothing to do. At that point is when it hits you the most. So you can imagine the scene. So you're up all night, every night. The way we make things work is we take it in shift work. So we literally designed our household where one will sleep, the other one stays awake, and you will swap over. That's how we run. That's the only way to run, is juggle with work, various other things. And from our point of view, that's how we've managed to survive. You get your sleep while you can, do what you can. But what it meant was you were on your own. So ultimately on an evening when the other ones catch up with sleep, you're sat on your own. And that's where it gets very lonely on an evening when you're sat there. You're trying to keep quiet because the kids have finally got a bit of sleep. Yeah, your wife's getting some sleep. You're there and you're making sure that you're not making a noise. So you haven't got the TV on loud. That's when you start scrolling through social media and stuff. That's when you realise that there isn't anyone to message. There isn't anyone to talk to. And that's where I started reading and researching back on Formula One. It was, like I say, prompted by lockdown and a bit of Drive to Survive. It was me getting interested in it. And the thing which really annoyed me was I couldn't find a news source that was reliable. Now, there's lots of news sources about, but every single news source seems to have this fascination with driving engagement by making either sensational headlines or by just, publishing clickbait rubbish, really, when there's not much going on. So they're sensationalise something to keep the engagement going. Now, that's cool. That's their business. That's what they're designed to do. I've got no issue with that. But it really annoyed me that I couldn't get a website or a page or something which just gave me straight talking Formula One facts. So built on that frustration, built on obviously, Sophie was at uni at the time or just about to go to uni, obviously very big on social media, especially during lockdown. Kind of taught me the world of TikTok and what it was all about. We did some fun challenges like most families in lockdown where she reckoned that I couldn't get more followers than her. So I absolutely wiped the floor with her because that's my competitive nature, which anyone knows me will know is there. And so you can imagine there I was at home, no one to interact with, all the friends had suddenly gone. We were into lockdown, massive Formula One fan. She teaches me TikTok. And I was like, do you know what? Is there a market for someone like me? And what I mean by that is, for me, when I gave up work, the biggest challenge I faced was the worthlessness, because when I gave up work, I felt like I'd given up. I felt like I wasn't worthy of anything. I felt like I was quitting, and that hit me the hardest thing. I've always been full blown at work, 100 miles an hour, 110% into everything I do. That's probably why I do what I do now with Coffee Corner Motorsport, because I have to do things 100%. It's my nature. And when I gave up work, it felt like that had gone. And it felt like my purpose had gone. The whole point of when I was growing up was to get a good job, to get the money in, to get security, to provide for the children, to go out to work. Yes, that sounds very, Stone Age, barbaric sort of answer, but that's what I was brought up on. Yeah, my dad is approaching a massive milestone birthday this year, still works full time. Doesn't take days off, doesn't take sick days. My granddad was the same. That ethic has come from them. And when I gave up work, I felt like I was letting everybody down. I felt like I was quitting. I felt like I was, that my time had been and gone, and I didn't know what I was doing. And one day Jo sat me down and she was like, to be honest, you've got to see this as a job. You've got to see that what you're doing is you've made the ultimate sacrifice for the children. You've gone, they're more important than anything. And what you're doing is the most important thing. You're fighting for their rights. So when I mean fighting, I mean, we've been to court. We've taken on the legal system for their disabilities. We've gone all the way. We've fought many authorities, people. I know many families do it. It's like I said at the top of the show, it's not a unique thing at all, which is probably even more disappointing if I'm honest. But we've fought so much, and we've literally kept going and kept going. And what Jo was saying was, you need to understand that this is a job. This is something that actually you need to be proud of what you do. You shouldn't be ashamed of it, which is what I felt like I was. You should be proud of what you've achieved, proud of what you're doing, proud of actually, how far you've dragged, the sort of the system as such, in terms of, trying to make a difference, helping people out, talking to people, trying to make changes where you can. Once I changed that mindset, I kind of relaxed a bit in that, but I felt like there was something missing from a mental health point of view, and that was interaction. It's great to interact with a circle of family and friends, but also when you're not interacting with the outside world, it can be a very lonely place. And it felt that. It really did. So from that point of view, that's when I started looking online at the social media posts around Formula One and stuff like that. It was an interest that, something that pricked my interest in terms of, something I really enjoy. It kind of got my passion back. And then when Jo said, well, why don't you make a page? Why don't you do something? Why don't you make a video? Why don't you, put yourself out there? And I was like, no one wants to hear from me. No one wants to hear from someone, the wrong side of 30, now the wrong side of 40, I must add. And, the market isn't built for somebody like me. I don't have skills in social media. I'm a retail manager. I'm used to rotors and dealing with staff and paperwork and stuff like that. I don't know the first thing about making a video, making a podcast, making content. I don't know nothing, So I set up Coffee Corner with my iPhone in my kitchen with my coffee, bringing the headlines. Those headlines come about through hours of research. So I'm now at a point now where I'm quite lucky because I know where to go for news. I never used to. It used to take even longer. Now I know where to avoid and where to go. It's something that's been, sort of honed over years of reading all these articles now. I know which reporters are generally quite good. I know which reporters or outlets aren't generally quite good. I'm not going to name names because that's their bag and I don't want to, big someone up or even belittle somebody who no doubt puts a lot of hard work into what they do. Some places will prefer to comment on everything, including rumours. Some places will stick to just news. And there's a market for everything, I feel. So, whichever individual market that falls into, that's cool with me. I think people just need to understand what that market is when they're reading these things. I think sometimes the lines on that get blurred. But anyway, so I've honed this thing now over reading articles. Like I sit up all night, I still do it, and I read article after article. I listen to podcasts. I will, glean information where I can. I'll double check it, triple check it, and get the best news I can to bring to everybody. But what's been created is something so different. And that is the community, the Formula One community. Not enough is said about this community. This community absolutely saved me. And that's not an exaggeration. When I started making videos, I started getting a bit of interaction. People started talking, and then people were like, actually, we want to hear what this guy has to say. So I then started doing more talking videos rather than just drinking coffee. And then I started doing like lives and stuff like that. And that's when people really started embracing me. And one thing I'm really so proud of is the community that I'm part of, the community that I hope in some way I've helped build, which is this community where you can respect people no matter who they follow, who they support, where their allegiances is. But ultimately, you can still have a conversation, a disagreement over something, but in a debating factual way, not in a nasty derogatory way. Now, just because you might support a certain driver, that doesn't mean that that's always right. But then likewise, when, what I wanted was this environment where you can feel safe and secure and come and debate, and that information, people don't feel like that information is being held. They feel like it's being shared. They feel like, actually, I can get that information. I can go into a conversation with somebody with some knowledge. Not everyone's got the time to sit and research stuff. Not everyone's got the ability to do that. We lead very busy lives. Some people just want to dip in, dip out, and that's really cool. And I don't understand why people have this hang up on this. It's like new fans and old fans. It doesn't matter how you become a fan of the sport. Ultimately, you're a fan. You don't go to a football match, for example, and say, "Oh, how long have you been a fan for?" It doesn't happen. People just accept that fan is there and that they're there watching it. Yeah, in Formula One, there seems to be this big stigma over when you joined the sport based on a Netflix program, which is just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Does it matter if someone's a fan of 30 years or 30 hours? No. Does that make someone more passionate? No, it doesn't. Does it make someone more right? No, it doesn't. And that's the thing. That's the hang up we need to get over, is that everyone needs to be welcome. Everyone needs to feel included. Everyone's opinion matters, no matter whether it's 30 hours, 30 minutes, 30 years. It doesn't matter where you've come to, this fantastic sport. Let's actually embrace the fact this fantastic sport has brought us all together in this space, not the other way around. It's a unique sport. It combines people from all over the world. One of the things I love about chatting is, you get people from all over the place coming into your lives, coming into your podcast, commenting from all over the world. That never used to be available to fans. We never used to have that growing up. There wasn't technology for it. There certainly wasn't the ability to get your message out to multiple countries, multiple platforms all at one time like there is now. There are some things about modern technology that just still amaze me. So when I set this up, the whole point was to talk to people, was to just make people feel included, to make people feel that they belong somewhere. I wanted a safe space where people could come and chat Formula One ultimately. That's now, like I say, branching off into other motorsports, which is really cool. But you can't forget the heritage, which was Formula One, which is why it was set up. And I suppose the reason for the podcast is, for me, I managed to do this as a hobby. This is a hobby. Make no mistake about that. A lot of people think it's not. It is. This is not my job. My job is to make sure that our children get absolutely everything they need from a world that's not set up for them. Making sure that the care they've got, the medication they've got, the help they've got, the school they've got, making sure all those things are in place so that actually they can maximise the most of the potential that they've got. You've got disabilities, they've got challenges, but my word, they've got so much potential, and I want to see them achieve it. I want to see them break down barriers. I want to see them do stuff. I want them to be able to share their story. I want them to feel safe to share their story when they want to share their story. And for me, this hobby has enabled me to do that. It's hard work. It takes a lot of hours. It takes a lot of time. There's a big conversation to be had about how much time these things take to post just an ordinary video. Someone made a fly on the wall comment on my Williams one the other day saying, "Oh, so your videos are scripted." No, they're not scripted, but they're researched. They're researched to make sure that they're right and accurate. That doesn't come on a 30-minute TikTok. That doesn't come on a 2-minute TikTok. That comes over 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes a couple of hours of reading, digesting, cross-referencing, getting the information you need, then putting it into a format where actually you can try and make it engaging. Because ultimately, I'm just a guy. No one wants to listen too much to me, so I need to find a way to make it engaging. Yes, I've learned some skills along the way. I mean, I cringe when I look back at those earlier videos where I think, my words, did I really post that? Did I really sound like that? We've done some things to help us. We created the shed. The shed is my heaven. It's my place to go. That space has enabled me to come and do things like this podcast, to enable me to come and do videos, to be able to reach an outside world, the partnerships that I've created along the way, the friends that I've found along the way, all these things I'm just so grateful for. And I suppose when I was looking at what to do this season, there was a bit of me that just wanted people to understand that. I wanted people to understand where I come from. It's not been easy. Along the way, I've almost lost Joe more times than I want to count. And when I mean almost lost Joe, I mean almost lost her to the point where I remember ringing my dad up because, it was touch and go whether Joe was going to make it. Giovanna, we've almost lost to the point where Giovanna stopped breathing when she was in intensive care. We've been in positions where you're very thankful of life. I was ill last year, so during the course of last year, I fell ill. I've never felt that ill. I had a cancer scare. It absolutely rocked my world. It scared the hell out of me. I haven't recovered from it. I've now got a condition which will last me, for my whole life, it seems. But it's not cancer, and it doesn't stop me doing stuff I like. So you got to be thankful of that. I think sometimes people have this image on social media that, you jet set off everywhere and it's all, roses and it's all good. There's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that. And I don't mean that as like I said, as a derogatory way or a dig in any way whatsoever, but to go away, for example, to London, we have to get people in to help. Joe needs help to make sure that she's got what she needs, kids get what they need. It takes a lot of planning. Vegas was like, oh my word, Vegas took the most planning ever in my life. But then we had a great time. And that kind of brings me back to Dad, because I'm just rambling rubbish now, aren't I? But that takes me back to Dad and those memories that we create. So Dad had never been able to get to Formula One. He's never been able to afford it. He's never been able to get the access that we've enjoyed over the past few years through the content of this channel, which is the thing I'm most proud about, because I've been able to give back to him some really cool stuff. And like I said at the beginning of the show, not everyone's lucky to do that. I get that. I get that, time is taken for granted when it shouldn't be. It's limited and it should be appreciated. So I try to cram in what I can. It's the reason I take Dad, because I want to make memories. I want him to enjoy some things. I want him to understand that all those sacrifices, that support he did, that I can pay him back in some way. And it seems menial, but to see his face going through the turnstiles, going into the paddock, to see him stood at the fence at Silverstone, in his Williams t-shirt, watching cars on track for the first time, to see how his face lights up when we go somewhere different in a factory, at an event, see that buzz he gets when he rings up and he's like, where next? Where we go next? Is just, honestly, it's like the best thing in the world. And that's all thanks to this community that's been created. It's all thanks to the community that's embraced me as a person, that's pulled me from a brink of, do you know what? I didn't think or know where I was, to creating content, which I'm really content on doing. I really enjoy it. I enjoy bringing people content. Yes, as I said at the top of the show, it's hard work, but that's not saying that it's a bad thing. Far from it. You should never be afraid of hard work. I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy making content. I enjoy being able to do this and then share it. It's a win-win for me in that situation. But I just wanted people to get a bit of a backstory on how Coffee Corner came about and what this community means. And going into is it the third full year? I don't know, the years kind of rolled, didn't they? But, 40,000 people over all the platforms, podcast, which gets listened to by however many a week. It's not a blow your trumpet moment, far from it. It's not. It's I can't believe there's a place for me in this world, which I generally didn't think there was. And for me, I'm eternally grateful for that. I just want to understand that. I also want to make sure that people understand that anyone can do it. You don't have to have, I didn't know anything about making videos, editing podcasts. I managed to teach myself 3/4 of the stuff. And the bits I don't, I managed to reach out to some great people and get some help with that. I met some great friends, like I said, along the way. And for me, I just want to say that if you are someone who's sat there and you're thinking, where do I fit into all this? And what can I bring? And no one wants to hear from me. No one's ever going to follow me, and I'm not going to put myself out there. Put yourself out there. Just do it. Just take the plunge. Because ultimately, everyone's opinion matters. And it's not easy. Yes, you get the hate comments. Don't get me wrong. I talk funny. Yes, I do. That's through various other things I've had to deal with, which we're not going to go into. Yes, I'm overweight. We know. I'm trying to do something about it. Bloody hard work. Don't get me wrong. Especially now my metabolism doesn't tend to want to lose weight. Let's be honest about it. And there's something to be said about chocolate biscuits at 1 a.m. when you sat there with a cup of coffee and you've had no sleep. And I appreciate that not everyone's cup of tea. But do you know what? The good outweighs the bad. The positives outweigh the negatives. You'll always get that. I ignore it now. It used to bother me. Now I just kind of brush it off. Yes, I look like Gary Anderson. No, I can't play darts. Every single live. Are you Gary Anderson? Yeah, like it's some sort of new joke. It's not. We get it every Tuesday. Just for the record, I'm not Gary Anderson. And just for the record, I am rubbish at darts. Although I might make some as a lookalike. I don't know. But yeah, what I'm saying is there's a place for everybody. There's a place out there. If anybody ever feels there isn't, and anybody ever feels like it gets too much, just remember, when you hit the bottom, it's quite good, because when you hit it, there's only one way you can go, and that's back up. And as someone who's hit that bottom and really struggled and really didn't know where they were, and I suppose is now at a point where I feel comfortable talking about it, my message here is don't be afraid. Don't think you're alone. Reach out if you need to. Get help if you need to. There are people, places, organisations that can help. This thing about mental health, is that what we call it? I don't know. All I know was I struggled and I found a way back. Is that mental health? Yes, I suppose it is. But for me, the more important thing is that we understand that there's a place for everybody, and that there's a place here, I hope, where if you're a motorsport fan and a Formula One fan, you feel that you can reach out to and just chat Formula One. And do you know what? If someone's having a really crap day and they can forget about it for 30 minutes on a podcast, 2 minutes on a video, an hour on a chat, and for that hour or so, those problems feel further back than what they may have been, then that's pretty cool, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. That's a pretty cool community we've all helped build. That's not what I've built. That's what we've all helped build. Every single person who's listened to this podcast, every single person who comments, every single person who shares a video, every single person who hits that like button, every single person who ultimately watches it and may not do any of those things, but just watches it. Because there are those people as well. And you know what? Every single one is just as important as the other one. Every single one is a part of this community, whether or not they feel it, you are. Ultimately, you are, because you're here, you're doing this. And sometimes this community has to be more than that. We've heard views last week at Formula One Live. We've heard about the reputation some fans get. But ultimately, we're all human. We're all here. We've all got limited time. And far too often, we take that time for granted. I was guilty of that. It's something I try not to do now. I think for me personally, I hope that this podcast is not too off the wall. In the sense of people are like, what is he on about? That's just 30 minutes of Terry just rambling rubbish. But also on the flip side, do you know what? Hopefully it might just, inspire some people to grab a phone and make some content, because you know what? We need you. We need every single one of you. And I love the diversity. I love the difference. Whether it be someone who comments on rumours, whether it be someone who does drawings, whether or not it's somebody who doesn't make a video, just comments, whether it's someone who just watches. Like I say, every single person is a part of this community. And how great is it that we've managed to build this up? And as we head into 2025, let's just see where it takes us. Because I always start the season with, not a lot of plans, and we end up doing some cool stuff. Thanks for listening. That's my 30-minute ramble of how Coffee Corner Motorsport come about, the reasons behind it, and hopefully a bit of an insight into the world of Terry and what we do. So if you haven't already, don't forget, I will be back this week with the Formula One Expresso news. That's not stopping. That's here as well. I'm also going to drop a special post-testing podcast beginning next week as well, which will be a roundup of all of this. And of course, the season kicks off, which means you're going to have to get used to my voice some more as I start appearing all over the place if you're a fan of Formula One. So apologies for that in advance. A huge thank you for listening. Don't forget, there should be a like, subscribe, follow button, whatever on the screen or the platform you're listening to it all. Don't forget to hit that one. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my ramble. Thank you for letting me be a part of the Formula One community. Thank you for your support, and let's have a great 2025.